Welcome to the Property Elite podcast. I'll be your host, Jen Lehman, chartered surveyor and co-founder of Property Elite. Stay tuned each week for more on industry hot topics, market updates and new RICS guidance.
Awaab's law, otherwise known as the Hazards and Social Housing Prescription Regulations England Regulations 2025, makes major changes in the residential social rented sector. The regulations sit under the wider Social Housing Act 2023. In summary, social landlords will have set timeframes to address emergency hazards and also damp and mould hazards that present a significant risk of harm to their tenants. This is essential knowledge for all residential RICS, APC and associate RICS candidates, as well as qualified surveyors involved in the management of social rented property. Why is it named Awaab's Law? In 2020, 2-year-old Awaab Ishak died due to a respiratory condition caused by damp and mould in his family's rented home. You can read more about the tragic event on the BBC website and judicial report. Awaab's Law is being brought in to avoid similar circumstances happening again. When does Awaab's Law take effect? It takes effect from the 27th of October 2025. What does Awaab's Law apply to? It applies to all social landlords, i.e. registered providers of social housing, including both private, local authority and housing association providers. It does not apply to long leasehold, owner-occupied, low-cost home ownership, temporary or occupied under a licence, support accommodation or shared ownership properties. What is the aim of Awaab's Law? From October 2025, social landlords will have set timeframes to address emergency hazards and also damp and mould hazards that present a significant risk of harm to their tenants. In 2026, the regulations will be extended to cover a wider range of hazards, including excess temperatures, falls associated with baths, stairs and between levels, structure collapse, explosions, fire hazards, electrical hazards, domestic and personal hygiene and food safety. In 2027, the regulations will be extended again to cover all remaining hazards defined within the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, HHSRS, with the exception of overcrowding. What do the regulations mean in practice? Under the Social Housing Act 2023, all social housing tenancy agreements now have an implied clause that landlords will comply with Awaab's Law. This means that even if the tenancy agreement does not include an express term, a landlord must still comply with the new regulations. If a social landlord fails to comply with the new regulations, a social housing tenant could take legal action for a breach of contract or via other redress mechanisms, e.g. Housing Ombudsman Service. Hazards that fall within Awaab's Law must be part of the social landlord's property, be in the landlord's control to fix, not be caused by the tenant's breach of contract, result from defects, disrepair or lack of maintenance, and be significant or emergency hazard. A significant hazard poses a significant risk or harm, whilst an emergency hazard poses an imminent and significant risk of harm, thus requiring action within 24 hours. Under the regulations, social landlords must investigate any potential emergency hazards, and if the investigation confirms emergency hazards, undertake relevant safety work as soon as reasonably practicable, both within 24 hours of becoming aware of them. They must investigate any potential significant hazards within 10 working days of becoming aware of them. They must produce a written summary of investigation findings and provide this to the named tenant within 3 working days of the conclusion of the investigation. They must undertake relevant safety work within 5 working days of the investigation concluding if the investigation identifies a significant hazard. They must begin or take steps to begin any further required works within 5 working days of the investigation concluding if the investigation identifies a significant or emergency hazard. If steps cannot be taken to begin work in 5 working days, this must be done as soon as possible and work must be physically started within 12 weeks. They must satisfactorily complete works within a reasonable time period. They must secure the provision of suitable alternative accommodation for the household at the social landlord's expense if relevant safety work cannot be completed within specific timeframes. They must keep the named tenant updated throughout the process and provide information on how to keep safe. How can I find out more? Head to the government guidance page to find out more about the new regulations and how to comply with them. As the regulations are being expanded over the next 2 to 3 years, keep an eye on this page for future updates. What do I need to consider when advising clients? You need to be aware of the new regulations if you are advising social housing landlord clients. The regulations require a proactive, tenant-centred approach and constant consideration of the repair and health of social housing properties. You could consider the following: auditing social housing stock for potential hazards, create clear and effective reporting channels to enable rapid responses to hazards, ensure that frontline staff are aware of and can identify hazards and know how to report them effectively. You can maintain robust records of vulnerable tenants, e.g. health conditions and hazards, both existing and where risks exist. Integrate health and housing data. Access the risk of potential hazards on a regular basis. Resource planning to ensure that the budget and resources available to respond to hazards. Contractor capacity in terms of availability and timeframes for completion of works. Top-level accountability and leadership in terms of compliance with the regulations, and tenant engagement to identify hazards early on and promote healthy living conditions.
Thanks for listening to the Property Elite podcast this week. Head to our website to check out our full blog, free and paid support resources and services, free consultation for every single RICS APC and ASOC RICS candidate, and also ask us any questions you have via the website chat blog. See you next week.